Hello. Hello and welcome back to the stage here at the Spanish Pavilion, a space that we've dedicated to the technological sector here in our country. The next presentation is by the company Cardo. It is titled Improving Network Coverage and Unlocking New Revenue Systems with Cloud-Native Geospatial Analytics. I'm going to invite on stage Javier de la Torre, Founder and Chief Strategy Officer of Cardo. Welcome, Javier.
Thank you.
And whenever you're ready, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, hi everybody. It's really my pleasure to be one more year here at Mobile World Congress. And thank you to the Spanish Pavilion for organizing this and everybody for attending. It is very exciting to be finally back. You know, we see Mobile World Congress in full throttle one more year. So great. So I'm coming here to talk a little bit about what Carto is, what our company, and then I'd like to kind of like touch more towards, what are the solutions, that we can provide for the telecommunication industry. But as you will see, we work in an area that is very horizontal, and but you can find us in many verticals. But as I said, from the title of my presentation, I'll try to focus much more towards how you can use location intelligence, what Carto does in the context of telcos. But before that, a little bit of an intro to Carto and myself. So my name is Javier de la Torre, and I'm the founder of Carto. We're around 200 people company now. Started in Spain, now based in US and Europe and different places. We have more than 2,000 customers worldwide. And our vision as a company really is to democratize access to what we call location intelligence or spatial analysis. We like to say that everything happens somewhere. So if you want to understand it, you want to analyze it from a geospatial perspective, Carto, it is the platform that allows you to do that. Now, more in concrete, and you actually one of the things that I like a lot, and today we might be able to even give you a demo. But if you want to try our product, the best way is really to go to carto.com and sign up for free and get a trial account and start using it. And really our vision in there is that there is a lot of interesting analytics that can be done based on location, but it's been traditionally very complex to do so. And what we're trying to do with Carto is to democratize access to that type of technology, so anybody can get an account and start kind of playing with our product and start kind of doing some of the analysis I'm going to be showing you today. Now, as I said, this is a very horizontal technology. Like I said, at the end of the day, everything happens somewhere, so everything can be analyzed from a perspective of location, right? So we're very familiar of things, like on real estate, we'd like to say location. Location is the most important thing when deciding where to live. So if you're working on that field, understanding the geography of a location is very important. But if you're working on telco, it's also very crucial. Where do you place your antennas? Where do you place your infrastructure? How do you deploy your fiber optic? Those are all geographic questions. Where do I do things? Where things will happen? And that applies to many sectors. Telcos or retail. Where do I open my restaurants? Where do I find my customers? In transport and logistics, where should I open a subway? What will happen if I close a street? All those problems and many more, in financial services, healthcare. I like to actually healthcare. We've had a crash course during COVID of the importance of location and human mobility. Well, all those questions are solved with what we call spatial analysis, right? And that's what actually Carto provides. Now, more in concrete, and if you look at, inside an organization, there is different levels of expertise when it comes to analytics. We have some organizations that have a big number of data analysts. I can think of someone that uses Excel and can use our tools to quickly and easily visualize the data on maps. But then you also have data scientists that need to do machine learning and AI models using the data. So we also tailor our product towards this audience. Or even more, organizations that need then to take these analytics and put it inside the product, developing solutions embedded inside the products. So we also have a set of APIs and SDKs that allows you to embed the analytics and the visualizations that you see of our platform inside your products. Now, from an analytics perspective, there is a revolution going on these days, very, very important, which is obviously moving the data to the cloud. And that's something that all organizations through their digital transformations are right now considering, right? So how do they leverage the cloud to be more effective when doing data analysis? And the benefits are very, very clear. I mean, like running on the cloud and using your cloud native infrastructure provides a much more efficient architecture when doing analytics. So we find that the organizations that are moved to the cloud for doing this data analysis can actually get, like 100x, like on the scalability, but also like reduce the cost very significantly. And that happens even more in the area around the space analytics. So the traditional industry, including telcos, have been traditionally doing maps and spatial analytics, this type of analysis I was describing, using desktop solutions, desktop analytics. So by moving them to the cloud, not only they can go now to a different level of a scale, but also at a different level of cost savings when applying it. Now, Carto itself, normally, I mean, when we work with organizations, there's three things that we need to provide them. When you're going to do, when you're going to be solving some of these spatial problems, you're going to need technology. As you will see, we have quite a bit of technology as a platform for you to make the maps, do the analysis. But you're also going to need data. If you are working on things like where do I place antennas or how do I optimize my network, you need to know where people live, how many people live there, their income, their demographics, their socio-demographics. So those type of data sources is also data that we make available inside the platform, for you to do analysis with it. And finally, very often we find the organizations do not have the skills in terms of data science or spatial analytics to actually achieve, like the analysis that they are looking for with our platform. So we also have a spatial data science services team based in Spain and in US to help organizations to actually get started and do it for them. Now, I'm just going to highlight a few use cases that in the different sectors. So for example, in transport is going through a big revolution with the connected car and and everything around like IoT and knowing how traffic and how commuting happens, right? So as we see more, and just even today, the Dirección General de Tráfico in Spain was actually advertising now new systems for alarms in cars that you can set up when your car breaks, so that instead of going out and putting like a triangle for traffic, you can put like a little alarm on top of the car, and that emits a signal that sends to in this case to the traffic authorities, alerting that there is a problem with a car in a particular location, right? So more and more things now are getting what we call like they're being connected, and now we can actually know their location. So there is a lot of use cases in terms of analytics once you have their data. So think about, like as I was describing, like what is actually the impact of closing a street? Will that actually produce traffic jams in other parts? What is the impact on the retailers around the area? We can also talk about logistic optimizations, like supply chain analysis. There's many different use cases now that you can perform with analytics thanks to a lot of these connected devices. Logistics is a very obvious, also very clear case where spatial analytics can be applied. Things like the most obvious route optimizations. So we are used to drive our car, using Google Maps or a system, to help you on the routing. But if you're actually doing that for package delivery, these routes can get really complicated, and actually improving them by a small percentage can have a very big benefits, when it comes to reduction on emissions, but also like on driving essentially less kilometers and just putting less cars on the street for that logistics, right? There's also around territory analysis. How do you split the territory to serve better? So there's many use cases you can do in that. Cities and governments are also very big user of spatial analytics. Obviously, I mean, we've heard around the smart cities. Like how do you measure things like pollution in the city? What are the areas that are getting more polluted? When should I close areas to traffic to avoid those pollutions? How do I define the areas of low emissions that are right now mandatory by the European Union? Those are all questions that you need to solve with the spatial analytics. did not cover it here, but obviously things like the pandemic show us, the importance of understanding the mobility patterns inside the cities, in case you want to control those patterns, and that's all thanks to space analytics. I also talk about infrastructure and sustainability, but before that, better than that, I'm going to focus a little more now, since we are in Mobile World Congress, on geospatial analytics for telcos. And in telcos, we are actually here at Mobile World Congress highlighting three main use cases that we are seeing and that we are working with a number of customers already. So the first one is around network planning, right? So we see that there's a huge investment from telcos in terms of deployment of 5G infrastructure. And the question, for a telco is how can you more effectively do that investment by prioritizing areas where you can recover faster those investments. So that's a whole area of so-called smart capex, of try to deploy 5G where you have more customers that will buy your service, right? So those type of analysis, understanding priority areas and prioritization is something that we do a lot at Carto. Same goes, to on regulation. So a lot of telcos are being, in part, subsidized by the European Union or the local governments, when it comes, to the expansion of the networks, and those comes with certain commitments of investment under certain areas, low-income areas. In Canada, we work, for example, on indigenous areas. So it comes with a set of prioritizations that are mandatory in order to receive, those supports on those investments. So those type of analysis of how you are covering those areas and those reports that you have to do to the regulation or the ministries of telecommunications and so on is also part of the use cases that we solve. And then the last one is a totally different use case, and has to do with creating a new source of revenue for telcos. We call it data monetization. Essentially means getting data that the telcos are collecting by providing their service and aggregating it and anonymizing it to create new data products that can be sold to other companies. An example of that is what we call footfall traffic. So obviously with the operation of the antennas, the telco get access about the number of devices connected to their antennas, and with that we can derive what is the suggested amount of people passing through a certain area. Obviously respecting GDPR and all the privacy regulations that exist, but this is very useful information and data for other organizations to, for example, plan where they're going to place a new store, or what is the impact of closing the street. You get to know that with data sets like this. And this data is actually being sold by the telcos through these data monetization portals. So that's also something that we help them on doing. We get all the data that they take from the antennas and the infrastructure and convert it into data products that they can sell to third parties. I think, it's actually working, nice. We got a video in here actually of the platform. So when you look at it, here is the Carto platform that you get if you go to carto.com and get you will be able to use. I think is this the video? Oh, no, yeah, it is. Is it playing? I think yeah, it's playing. So, so this is our product that what you're looking at. One of the analysis we want to showcase in here is a very basic analysis of understanding the coverage of a telco. We want to look at how many people will get LTE coverage around Barcelona if around a certain area. And that depends, of course, on where the antennas are, but then also where people are. And the way that we do that is by using something we call Carto workflows. Carto workflows is a technology that allows an analyst to be able to do a spatial analysis without having to code to do any SQL or any Python or complex analysis. We call it a low-code or a low-code or no-code tool for doing a spatial analysis. So you see here on one side, we're placing a table, what we call the LTE cell towers. So it is a data set where we have all the cell towers that provide LTE in Barcelona. Let's see if I actually look at it. I have here, these are the locations of the antennas, right? And I guess it's actually in Barcelona. Now what I'm going to do is, because this is actually all the antennas in Spain, I'm doing what we call a spatial intersection with with a polygon of Catalonia. I'm only looking at getting only the antennas that are in Catalonia, right? And I do that with what we call a spatial join. Under the hood, this is writing SQL that is actually being sent to a data warehouse for doing this analysis. But you didn't have to write any of this code. Before, you had to write all this code on your own. Now, Carto just provides you with Carto workflows. So that's a first thing. I think we're just giving it now a title on this one. And the next thing after Cala getting only the antennas in Catalonia, we're doing something we call a buffer. A buffer is when we draw a circle of a certain radius around each of the antennas. So for each antenna, we're going to make a circle, in this case, of 500 meters, which is more or less the average coverage distance that you get from an LTE antenna, right? Just to kind of get a broad idea of how much, in this case, you will see later, how much people are within that circle in the antenna, right? So that's what we do with a buffer. Now, one important thing when you're doing this type of analysis is that, in this case, we're doing only here in Catalonia and with only LTE antennas. But very often when you work with telco data, you end up with very, very large data sets. So doing this type of analysis, you have to use something we call a spatial analysis, like H3, that we provide on our product, that allows you to essentially do these type of operations at a scale. So what you're again seeing, looking at like just the antennas, only antennas in Catalonia, a 500 radius around the antennas, and now I'm going to intersect it with another source of data of population. And the result of it will be how many people are covered by LTE coverage in Catalonia versus how many people are not covered. So essentially, what is the percentage of people who have access to LTE coverage in Catalonia? That could be like a very simple kind of like analysis that a telco needs to determine to look at what is the presence in an area, right? So see now I'm just connecting the population to the result of the previous analysis. I'm finally saving it as a table because I likely are going to need to give it as a report to another department or to a regulator. And that's essentially what we're doing. We're building that entire analysis that you had to before do with a very large SQL, just in a very visual way, right? If all runs correctly, and I click now Save and Table, the last step, and I look at the result of it, I think I have it in here. You see here is the analysis done in the cells and so on. Well, the result of it, it's 80% of like all population in Catalonia is within 500 meters of an LTE antenna, right? So that will be the ratio of LTE coverage in Catalonia. Of course, I mean, there's 5G and there's like 3G and other networks, but this is just like an example of the type of analysis. We're just making a map at the end of it, just to visualize the result. And as you can see here, I'm just kind of like looking at all the areas where there is antennas and the coverage with them, and how many people are within those areas. Obviously, Barcelona is very dense. There's a lot of population that is getting covered. And there's other areas where there's less coverage, but there's less people as well. So this is the type of analysis that you will do with Carto. And again, I mean, just to summarize it, I think that's for the demo. Like this is built, with a number of tools within the application. We got Builder, which is the tool for making the maps that you saw. Carto Data Observatory is the repository of all this data that I was describing that we can make available. You saw how we have demographics and demographics and social demographics information, right? But we have also like behavioral data, human mobility, housing, POIs, all the data that can give you a better context about what's going on in a location, right? All of this is done natively on your data warehouse, either in BigQuery, Snowflake, Redshift, in the major cloud providers, right? Again, remember, one of the biggest difference of Carto is that we push down the analytics where your data is in your data warehouse in the cloud versus having to extract the data analysis outside. And that's thanks to our Carto Analytics Toolbox. Again, finally, the APIs and, and all the applications, all the analysis that you've seen and visualizations, you can embed them on your own applications. It's very common for a telco to have their internal tools that they use for internal purposes, or they need to communicate with others. They can do that also with Carto. And you've seen Carto workflows in action as a simple way to drag and drop and as a low-code tool. That's all what I have for today. Thank you very much for your attendance, and if you got any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you. Bueno, y ahora sí que somos todos españoles aquí. Si os parece lo cortamos aquí, ¿no? Vale.